I hope you had a chance to try out Find. Let me show you how you can use it. I hope you tried some of these examples that you saw in the book. Let's set up our own example. So let's clear all of this and make a directory called A. So there it is, A. I'll cd into it. ls minus l, there's nothing in it. And let's create a file called first. It doesn't really matter what goes in it. We're just not interested in the contents. I'm going to hit Control D to stop cat. If you list it out, there it is. It's just got 23 characters, and let's just make some copies of this. Copy first, call it second, and then copy second and call it third. So now if you do an ls minus l, you should see, well, I guess it was all created in roughly the same time, but I believe even though it displays that it was created in the same time, it actually does keep track of seconds and things like that. We'll find out. Okay, so let's find in the current working directory all files that are newer than the file called first. Okay, so we see second and third and also the current directory. So it turns out when you say look in the current directory for everything that is newer than first, that includes regular files and also directories. So that's why this pops up at the very top. Because anytime you create a file in a directory, the modification time of that directory is updated, and so that's why the period shows up. Okay, good. So now we know that this works. We can try to remove all files that are newer than first. So that's the kind of thing that you might be able to do with this find command that would be hard to do with just looking using ls and then removing files one by one. So here, if you have hundreds of files and you know you want to get rid of everything after one particular file, you can type in one command and it'll remove hundreds, thousands, millions of files with just one command. That's why this is so powerful. So let's take a look at the syntax. So you have to say find and then whatever the option is. And I just realized, just thinking about this, on a live DVD, you are not going to find any old files. So everything is going to be like, it look like it was created today. Entire file system pretty much, except maybe some old configuration files might look newer. But on a live DVD, that's one of the things. If you tried this, you probably find that it doesn't find anything. That's because nothing is old on a live DVD, pretty much. Okay. So what we want to do is find all files that are newer than some file and then remove them. So let me just go back up and do an ls minus l. Oops, ls minus l. So we have a bunch of files and we want to remove everything after first. And we know that even though it doesn't show us the seconds, it keeps track. The Unix file system does keep track of when this was created, and so it should remove these things. Just to make sure, we can use this command called touch. What it does is change the modification time. So now notice if I touch second, it sets the modification time to the current time, and I can check that. Here's the current time, 1:37, and it sets second to that. So let's just wait one more. About a minute, which would be a long time, and then we will set the modification time using the touch command for this file called third, just to be sure. I mean, we actually are sure, but just to show you that it does actually really work. We're almost there. Okay, so once we change the modification time of third, we can do something like this. Find all files that are newer. We will use the option newer, then first, and then we remove it. Okay, and I believe there has to be a space here. This is a typo. So, and actually there might be a typo in the book too. If I vaguely remember that there was a typo in the book that you need a space after the close curly brace and before the slash. I believe there should be a space there. Okay, so let's check the date. Sure enough, we've moved on to the next minute. I can touch third, and now, okay, there it's all nicely lined up. First was at 133, second at 137, third at 138. Now I can say find in the current directory anything that is newer than first and just remove it. Exec remove. So it turns out you would think this should work. Turns out it doesn't like it. And let's try. I think it needs a space there. This also will not work unless you have the semicolon, and you need to escape the semicolon. That's what it's called. So this doesn't work by itself. I believe you need a space, and you need a semicolon, and you need to escape it. That's the slash. Okay, so remember that when you ask it to find anything newer than first, it also, one of the things that it gives us is the current working directory, and you cannot remove the current working directory. Okay, so that's because remove only works with files, unless you use the -R option, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so it essentially worked. Now let me just check if, oops, we can't do that. So let's just check if the remove worked. Sure enough, it worked. So let's try to recreate that. Now I'll recreate second and third, and I will check if you need a space here or not. I believe you do. So in the book, I think it says do not use a space. Yeah. Okay. So the book does have a little typo there. The book is missing that space. So this doesn't work. This one with a space will work. So make a note of that. This is how you want to execute the remove command. Okay. Let me see if I can specify that I only want to remove files, not directories. Let's see if that'll work. Yes, that works better, I believe. Just to make sure, I'll do everything all over again. Copy first to second, copy second to third. Find all files only, no directories, newer than first, and execute the remove command. Remember that space. Okay, yes, it worked. So there are so many things that we could try, it's just endless. Let me try one more thing. First to second, copy second to third, and then I will do the same thing as before, except that instead of exec I will say OK. So what this should do is ask me, do you really want to remove this? I'll say yes. Do you really want to remove second? Yes. Okay. So remove is pretty much permanent. Remember that there is no trash or recycle bin that you can take things out of once you've removed them. It's gone. So that's why it's always good to use remove -I or In the case of find, use the -OK option before you remove. Okay, so once again, there is a little typo in the book, I believe, or at least in the notes, that you need a space over here if you want this command to work. So these commands are so picky, you have to be exactly right, and then if you have a typo, then nothing works. So put that space right there. Okay, so we also looked at the -OK option just now. Try it out for yourself. It's not that hard. We've looked at the head command. The head displays the beginning of a specified file. You can display just the first 5 lines. By default, it always shows the first 10 lines. If you say head space star, then what you're really saying is display the first 10 lines of all the files in the current directory. You probably don't want to do that if you have a lot of files. You can select the number of lines. You can say more than 10. You can say head -15. There's various options. We've looked at this in the past. There's the opposite of head, which is tail, which does just about the opposite. It shows you the last 10 lines by default, and then you can say tail -5 to show the last 5 lines of a file, and so on. And there's a bunch of different options. You want to try it out. I'm not going to go over this. We've looked at it in the past. Okay, so the next thing we will look at is cut. There's 2 commands that called cut and paste. They don't quite work the way you think it would work, so you have to be really careful. So I will talk about cut and paste in the next lecture, and be careful about how you use them there. It might not be exactly what you expect.